Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Brittnee, if you don't already know. I am so excited for today's video. I am going to show you how to make my favorite plated Halloween dessert. I came up with this design 2 years ago for a vampire Halloween party. So it's a slice of cheesecake with some white chocolate bones on top and some bloody, not really, cherry topping, all hidden inside a creepy chocolate coffin. So for this plated dessert, you are going to need some cheesecake. I won't be making that in today's video, but I do have a video for the best, creamiest cheesecake recipe. You can check that out in the card above. You will also need to know the basic technique of cutting out chocolate shapes. If this video today isn't detailed enough for you, you can check out this tutorial on my channel. And I went over how to make the white chocolate bones in last week's video, so if you missed it, check that one out right here. Along with those three things, you will need the following supplies for the dessert: a nice plate for plating, some cocoa powder. Special dark is great because this is going to look like dirt, so I like this color better. And then you will need a topping. I'm using cherry because it's red and that's creepy like blood. And I'm just using canned cherry today. You can make it homemade or use it from a can. And then to make the chocolate coffin, you'll also need the following supplies: some dark chocolate. Today I'll be using Van Leer dark chocolate snaps, which is a compound chocolate. Silicone or plastic cups or bowls for melting or tempering your chocolate. Remember that melting your chocolate in glass can easily cause it to burn. A couple offset spatulas. I like to have a large and small. A couple sheet trays. Make sure these are super flat. This is what you'll be putting your chocolate on. So if you want your chocolate to be flat, your sheet tray also needs to be flat. A couple acetate sheets and some tape. Some food grade gloves. Some parchment paper sheets, a couple of parchment paper piping bags. Check out the card above to learn how to make these. Some thin cardboard, like from a graham cracker or cereal box, to cut out a coffin pattern. If you'd like to use my pattern, you can click the card or find the link down in the description box to download my PDF. And then for decorating your coffin, you'll want some lemon extract, edible gold leaf, and edible gold powder. All right, to get started, you're going to prepare your sheet tray. So you'll take a sheet of acetate and secure it to your pan. When I do my tape, I like to fold one end over. It makes it easier to get it off the pan later. So I just tape the corner kind of softly, and I'm going to tape all 4 corners to make sure it's nice and flat and secure. Okay. And so just to prepare you, so you know what we're doing, we need to make 2 top pieces that are in the shape of a coffin, because I'm doing like a layered look. It makes it look really cool. So that's that. And then I'm going to need 2 of these side pieces, 1 foot, 1 head, and 2 diagonal. So I'll need 2 of these, 2 of these. If we plan it right, we could fit it on 1 acetate sheet, but probably won't. So I'm just going to plan to do 2 chocolate sheets, and I'll fit as many as I can on each one. Okay, so after this is prepared, you're just going to temper or warm up your compound chocolate. So I've got mine in my cup here, and I'm just going to heat it for about 30 seconds at a time. Stir in between until it's almost smooth, and then stir it to finish melting the tiny little bits left, and then it'll be ready to go. Okay, I've got my chocolate, and I'm just going to pour a bit across. and try to shape it in a bit of a rectangle, trying to keep it even. And this back side doesn't have to be perfect because it won't show, and it's the other side that is touching the acetate will end up being shiny and smooth. So just do your best to get this flat. You're wanting to aim for about 1/8 of an inch thick, probably. Sometimes I like to take the big one after I've got it pretty even and just smooth it over. My spatula is not completely flat though, so sometimes I don't like to use it, but we'll see how it turns out. And now we've got it all spread out. We need to wait till it starts setting up, and then you'll grab your paring knife, and once it's set up, we'll start cutting out the shapes. You'll know that it's ready to cut out when it gets matte, and you can touch it with your finger without getting it melted chocolate on your finger, but it'll take a couple of minutes. You can help even it out and smooth it out by hitting under the pan, and it'll level itself out like that if you want to. I'm going to start with these ones because they're the fun ones to cut out. Still melty, and depending on how warm or cool it is in your house, it'll take a little longer to start setting up. You might be able to hear my AC because it was getting warm in here, so I turned it on. So it might take maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, it's been a couple minutes and I can see the edges are starting to set. Nothing on my finger, but the middle is still shiny. So I'll just keep waiting. You can help it along by fanning it a little bit if you're bored. Okay, it looks like we're ready to go. I'm going to do these two right in the center. I'm going to do it this way. I like to kind of steer clear. Okay, guys, I don't know why, but my camera said it stopped recording automatically. And I don't know what the last thing you saw was. But good thing we'll be doing a second sheet just in case we miss some of this. I cut out the 2 coffin shaped pieces and the foot piece, the foot of the coffin. And now I'm just going to cover it with a piece of parchment. And before it sets up, I need to weigh it down because chocolate, when it starts setting up, will curl. So you need to weigh it down with something flat. I have this really nice kind of heavy flat sheet tray that I'll put on top, but if you have like a couple boxes of butter, works really good because it's heavy and flat and you can just stack them across it. I'm going to put this in the fridge for about 10 minutes and then I will show you how to peel the pieces up. Okay, now I'm going to get some gloves on just to make sure I don't get any fingerprints on my final pieces. And hopefully my camera doesn't do anything weird again. So I'm just going to take off the sheet tray from the top and the parchment and start peeling away the extra pieces. And you can use these pieces on the side. You can reuse them, just break them up and reheat them. Oh, listen to that snap. Love it. So good. So I'm going to carefully peel around the outside. And I'll save my pieces for last. You don't have to. I'm just doing it that way. And they should come off really easy if you kept it in the fridge long enough. And they were in there for me for 10 minutes. So, and they're nice and crispy. So, here's one coffin piece. And I'm just going to set it aside on a piece of parchment paper. Should be shiny from the acetate. And our little foot piece. Okay, now I can take off my gloves. I'm going to peel the tape off, which is easy if you folded them over once. And you can reuse your acetate sheet by just flipping it over. Try not to get crumbs on the new clean side, and just repeat the process. Oh, oh no, I ripped a piece because my knife was too sharp. Okay, I just have to be careful over here because there's a corner missing. So just keep that in mind if that happens to you. Okay, now my chocolate has set up a little bit. I'm going to rewarm it. And that's easy to do because I'm using the compound chocolate. So let me refresh my chocolate really quick. And I'm using the extra pieces from before as well. All right. So once again, I'm going to pour a little bit of chocolate like that and start creating that rectangle. I think before I said you want this to be about 1/8 of an inch. I think 1/8 of an inch would be the thickest you want it actually. So between 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch. I don't measure though, I'm just using like the feel. Basically, if you just press, I mean, I'm pressing kind of gentle and like, I don't know, you just have to practice, I guess. It's hard to explain. You can kind of just feel it. It's like just the right amount that comes between you and the offset spatula, or I mean, between the chocolate and the offset spatula is like the perfect amount. Like you kind of just get a feel for it. So I don't think that's helpful, but just practice and keep that in mind. And you know what? I'm not going to go over it with the big one this time because I think this worked pretty well. So I'm just going to knock the bottom to level it, because that really made it nice and smooth. And then it's just waiting again. So this time I'll need to do I need 2 side pieces, 2 diagonal, and then 1 for the head of the coffin. So that's what I'll do on this sheet. And good thing we have more to cut out because I got cut off last time. So I'll just say the same things I said before so you won't miss out on anything. All right, it's only been like 3 minutes and this is ready to go. So what I was saying before I got cut off is I like to steer kind of clear of the edges because they tend to be thinner. So I'm going to cut this out of the middle. And then I also was saying that I extend my lines across off of the pattern because it will help peel your shapes out when it's set up without breaking them. So that's why I do that. And this one, because they're both straight edges, I'm going to line these 2 up. You know what? I have room. Never mind, not going to do that. I don't want to risk it. Okay, so just cutting this out. And then I'm going to extend the line to help me peel it up easier. So I have 2 sides. And then I need 2 of these diagonal pieces. Oh, I was also saying, I think on the last video, that it's helpful if you have extra room, you can be more efficient than I'm being and cut out extra pieces because sometimes they can break or something can happen to them. So I might do that as well, especially these little pieces. Well, the big ones too, but I'm just super careful with the big ones. Okay, so this is the head piece. I only need 1, but I'm going to make 2. And if you download my pattern, it will tell you how many of each one you need, so. Okay. And I'll just go ahead and make an extra diagonal. And then, oops. While I'm at it, I'll make 1 extra of the foot piece from the last sheet. Okay, so just the same as before, you've got all your pieces cut out. You'll lay a parchment sheet on top, weigh it down with something flat. Doesn't have to be too heavy, just enough to prevent the chocolate from curling up as it sets, and into the fridge for about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, so remove this, and take out our pieces. Ooh, there's some lines here from where I had cut out the other piece, so keep that in mind. Maybe you won't want to reuse your acetate if you're not trying to conserve your acetate sheets. You might just want to use a new one so that you don't accidentally get some lines from the previous cut, but that's okay. I'm decorating these, and I also don't mind if they look a little weathered since they're creepy coffins, but just so you're aware, that could happen to you too. Okay, so once you use your acetate sheet twice, you definitely don't want to use it again because they really don't clean that well, plus the cut marks. So really once on each side is enough, so then you'll just throw it away. And here are the finished pieces, and it's time for the fun part. Before we assemble the coffin, we're going to decorate it. So I'll show you what I'm going to do for that. It involves a lot of chocolate piping. So that will also take practice if you've never done that before, but it's super fun. And yeah, I'll show you what I do. Okay, I'm going to start by first adding some gold leaf to the chocolate pieces, kind of randomly. There's no like certain place that I'll add it. I just kind of add it to accent the pieces. So I've got some lemon extract, and I'm just going to dip a small brush in that. And to add the gold leaf, I just put a little lemon, and then with some tweezers, take a piece of gold leaf and lay it on, and the lemon extract will attract the gold leaf, make it stick. And on this one, I'm just adding like to the edge of this piece because this piece goes on top of this piece a little bit higher than it, so you'll only see the very edge of this one. So I'm just doing like some highlight areas, so along this edge, and then I'll do a little bit on this edge, and then down in this corner. And then once the lemon evaporates, I just, with a kind of more soft, larger brush, I kind of tap it so it's secure, like that, and flat. And then I'll just continue on with the rest of the pieces, and I'll show you where I add them, the gold leaf. Okay, so the thinner coffin piece is a little bit different because I want it to have a nice bright gold leaf moon. So I'm going to use my circle cutout so that it's a perfect circle, and I have drawn this on here so that it lines up just right where I want it. And I'm going to set that there. And then with the lemon extract, I'm going to paint. I've got to hold this gently down. I'm going to paint inside. I can just trace around the outside for the circle shape. And then I'm going to leave that there and just throw on some gold leaf. I want it to be as covered as I can get it, because some of it will brush off anyway. But to give it a nice circle, I want it to be pretty filled in. So I'm going to add quite a bit. Before I move the circle, I'm going to just tap it with the brush to secure the gold leaf. And if it's not quite as crisp as you want it, you can add more. I'm going to add more because I want it to be more filled in than this, so. Okay, that's good enough. It looks like a nice creepy moon, full moon. And I'm going to add just a little bit more gold leaf just to highlight some areas. Like that. And these pieces are ready to be piped. Okay, so a couple tips when you're piping. In fact, I have a chocolate piping video if you want some practice sheets. You can check that out in the card above. I like to stand up because it helps. Rather than moving your wrist, you want to move your body. It'll help you get cleaner lines. And then setting your arm against a table and like following along will also help. And then I like to start, there's a couple of the pieces, actually most of the pieces are going to be outlined with chocolate. And I like to start with that first while my chocolate is fresh. Like I have just created this, I have just made this chocolate bag. So the chocolate is nice and warm and fluid, and I'll get a thinner, cleaner line. The other thing is you want to cut the hole in your piping bag as small as possible because the thinner the lines are, the cleaner. But if you cut it too small, it can make your chocolate, it can make it hard because when you put pressure, it will do like squiggly chocolate. So you've just got to find the right balance. So I'm going to start by just tracing a straight line. So I've traced the whole outline of this piece, and then I'm going to do another smaller rectangle inside, about that far part. And when you're doing these long lines, it works better if you don't try to stop in the middle. Just finish the line and just try to stay at an even speed the whole time. Now we'll grab our other piece that's just like this. Okay. And actually, while I have this one, I'm going to add handles. This is going to be the side of the coffin. In fact, I'm going to grab both of these, just do them at the same time. So I'm going to find the center and then find the center of that. And I'm just going to do a little like U shape. and then on the other side. So they look about even. And then I'll add little knobs at the top of each of those by just doing a thick dot of chocolate. And then add a little bit extra at the bottom as almost like a handle where your hand would squeeze. Okay, and then these ones aren't quite done, but I'm going to continue doing the outlines on some of the other pieces and come back to the ornamental designs on these. So then each of my 4 small pieces just get one outline on every side. And I'm leaving just a little bit. I'm not doing it right on the edge of the chocolate. I'm leaving just a tiny bit of a border. And then just a tip to keep the chocolate in your piping bag fluid as you continue piping, because there's a lot to do, is to just take a hair dryer and just blow hot air onto it, and it'll keep the chocolate warm so it doesn't set up while you're trying to pipe all these designs. So the next one I'm going to do, because it's really easy, is the large coffin shape, and I'm just going to do dots around the whole border. Okay, and this piece is completely done with piping, so we can set it aside. All right, these are the head and foot pieces, and the design on these is going to be a spider web. So I'm just going to do one line across, and I like the center of the spider web to be on top of a piece of gold leaf. So I make an X, and then I put a line evenly through each slot, and then once more, and then I add U shapes like this, and then I just do a second row of them, and then a third if it fits in some areas, and you have a web. And then I'll do the same thing for this one. For this one, I think I'll just do the web right in the center. Okay, so those are our 2 web pieces, and they are completely finished, so I'll set them aside. All right, and these 2 are the 2 diagonal side pieces, and I'm doing like an ornamental star moon design. I'm taking a tip, it's Attico 807, I'm using this end, and I'm going to give myself a guide by just gently pressing to make a circle. Just enough so that I can see it without, don't want to press too hard because you can snap your piece. I've done that before. So just kind of go around just to make an impression, tiny bit, to like scratch the surface so you can see the circle. You can freehand it if you want to. So I'm going to outline the circle like that, and then basically create like a crescent moon, and then fill in the moon like that. And then the same thing on this one. Then to the side of each moon, I'm going to start with like a plus sign and then just connect them. That makes a little star. Now I'm going to add some like swirlies. I'm going to start in the center and do like a eye shape, and then like a swirly S. And then to the sides of those, I'll just do another swirly. I'll start on the outside and go in like this. Sometimes I get confused at which way to spin it. So that's why I hesitated. Okay, and then we're just going to repeat that exact same pattern. Okay, and those two pieces are done, and we'll set them aside. Oh, I missed this one. The final swirl. Okay, now they're done. Okay, and then here's how I'm going to finish off these side panels. So you'll want a fresh bag because this part doesn't always turn out that great, but in the end it looks just like ornamental. Because what I want to do is do like twirlies, but sometimes the chocolate smudges or you can't fit it. But you want a fresh bag with fluid chocolate. And I basically do a dot and then loop it up and around. And I switch the direction each time. And sometimes the chocolate connects, which is okay. The great thing about these coffins is they don't have to look perfect because they're supposed to look kind of like old and weathered and, you know. Yeah, so I'm kind of just doing like curlies, going opposite directions. Okay, now this piece is completely done, and I'll do the other side panel the exact same. All right, I've saved my favorite piece for last. It's also the most complicated. But first I'm going to start by tracing the outside in a straight-ish line. Okay, that wasn't that perfect, but it's okay. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing by doing a second line and leaving space to fill in. Okay, so here at the bottom, I'm going to do 2 more extra lines across. And this part's fun because I'm going to be making a fence, like an old creepy fence. So I'm going to start in the center of the coffin. I'm going to put a mark like, I don't know, that far below the moon. And then I want the angle to be pretty sharp and pointy. And then I just create a triangle. So I want this to be at the same place on the opposite side. And create a point like that. And then I can going to do a cross. I'm going to pipe it pretty thick, like this. And then the bottom of the fence, well, the middle of the fence, where the triangle is, I'm going to do a little bit of an arch, like that. Now, I'll do the fence part. So in the center, I want a double line. So don't draw, I'm not gonna draw lines right in the center, but a little bit off center, straight up with a gap in between, like that. And the same thing on this side. All right, and then we're going to do another small triangle inside this triangle, just like that. And then I'm going to do one line straight down the middle and a curly S on both sides. And I can just do a couple dots. Fill in the gap like that. Now I'm going to do a bat right above the cross. To do the bat, I'm just going to do a dot for the head and a body kind of like that. And then I want the top of the wings to be like that. And then I connect it with a curve and then bring it down. Then I'm going to do two like that and connect the lines here and give a little pointy ear on each side. And there's the bat. Now we'll do some filler. So I'm going to do 5 dots in each of these and then fill in the fence, but only every other gap. So with a little bit smaller dots. And then the last, one more set of dots here along the cross, really small ones, just to give it some texture. And then I'm going to add some spikes to the fence by doing a dot and then dragging it up. Okay, and then to finish this piece off, I'm doing the same ornamental curly Q design along the border. Now the last thing to do as far as decorating is dust the pieces with edible gold powder, and that will highlight all the piping work that we did. So I just dip my brush into the gold and then I kind of just basically dust everywhere that I piped. And that just brings out all the detail. All right, the next step is to put together the coffin, and to do that, I will show you what I've got. I have a pan that's been in the oven at 190 degrees, just warming up. That'll help me melt the pieces together. I will also need a piping bag full of chocolate, my pieces, and I've got a piece of parchment paper laid out here with the coffin pattern underneath to help me line them up. So I'm going to start at the top. So we have the headpiece and these 2 diagonal pieces, and I'll just start with 2 of them. And what I want to do is gently melt at a diagonal so that I just take off this edge and get the chocolate a little bit melty. I'm just gently pressing it on the warm pan. And then I'm going to stick these together at the right angle. Not a right angle, but the right angle. At the angle that matches the pattern. And this is why it's important to have this underneath, so that you can see what angle that is. I'm going to take my piping bag and then I'm just going to add, make sure these are lined up. Just going to pipe some chocolate on the inside to help support. And I'm going to set my piping bag on the warm pan. It'll just help keep it warm a little bit longer. So I have those 2 and they stand up on their own. And then I will add the second diagonal corner piece the same way. I'm basically just holding it on the hot pan at a slight angle, creating basically like a 45-degree angle. And make sure the whole thing's lined up with the pattern below. And add the support chocolate just along the inside. And I'll show you what that looks like. So, because I know I'm facing the wrong direction. So I'll just spin it around for you guys. Okay, so I'm going to continue building. And this is how I just gently tap it onto the warm pan till I get a little bit of an angle. And then lining it up with the pattern, I gently, carefully hold it there. Sometimes by melting the corner, you don't get enough chocolate to really have it stick. This one's hanging on by a thread, so it's really good to have the piping bag right by you and ready. And I just generously pipe a line of chocolate on the seam. And then while the chocolate sets, don't touch it. Just let it set until it's firm before doing the next piece, or else they can tip over. And you don't want that to happen. Just so you guys know, I stick my sheet tray back into the oven from time to time because it cools down pretty quick since it's such a low temperature. And you can also just lay your piping bag on your pan and put it in the oven too with it to keep it warm. The temperature's so low and you're only putting it in there for a minute that it won't hurt the chocolate. But you want the pan to be, you know, warm enough to melt. So it's helpful to just keep popping it back in. Okay, so I'm going to melt the other end of this one, this side, and then also this side where I'm sticking it. And this one's going to be, because it's the last two pieces, sometimes it can be hard to get everything lined up just perfectly so that this foot piece fits just perfectly. So you'll want to do the last two pieces at the same time before adding your extra support chocolate. I just find it's easier because you don't want to have a crooked coffin, although it's okay if it's a little crooked. So I've got my two pieces lined up, and they lined up pretty good actually. So that means I followed my pattern pretty good. And now before they fall or move, I'm going to add that support chocolate. And this kind of moved away, so I'm just going to press it in. And then I'm just going to add a tiny bit on the inside of this one to help me hold it when I press it. Not too close to the edge or it'll squish out, and you don't want it to show on the outside. Okay, now everything's in its proper place. You want to get it where it's supposed to be and then stop touching it. I'm only going to add a little chocolate here because I don't want to knock things over when I reach in there to add chocolate. And I'll add extra down in there later when this is more secure. So I'll let it set up for just a second. In fact, while I do that, I will just show you quickly what we're doing with this piece. So this piece right here goes underneath this piece to create like a nice layered effect. Makes it look a little cooler, adds some dimension. So what I'm going to do is add some like chocolate dots, not too tall, just about like, and maybe about as high as these dots on the side. This is going to add height to this. And so I'm going to do, I want them to be supportive so that this doesn't break. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I did 8 dots. You don't have to do 8 dots exactly, but I actually want these to set up first or get pretty firm so that when I push this, it just doesn't squish to the bottom. When these are starting to set up, I'll just add a little bit more on top of each one, like that. And then I'm going to carefully layer this. I line it up in the center and just gently set it on. And leave it to set up. Now, this is sturdy enough that I can carefully reach into these back corners now, all the way to the bottom, and add a little extra chocolate. You want this to be really strong so that it doesn't break when you're plating it. And then if you see any other areas where you think you could use a little extra chocolate glue, just add it now. And then the last finishing touch I like to add is dots on the top, just to make the top of the coffin look finished when the lid isn't sitting on it. So I'm just going to add dots around the whole edge. Then once your dots are set, you will just highlight them with your gold dust. Okay, so now it's time for the plating. I've got my cherries, my cheesecake, cocoa powder, white chocolate skeleton bones, and the coffin, of course. And I'm going to take the small pattern and lay it where I want the coffin to sit. And this plate is kind of oblong, so it's kind of perfect. And then I have this mini little spoon. I'm just going to add a little bit of cocoa powder along the edge like dirt. Okay, once you add the dirt, you'll just carefully pick up the pattern, and that will guide you as to where you put your cheesecake. And just a little note about the cheesecake. I didn't want to bake a whole cheesecake just for today's video, but when I do, I use one of these cutters. And if you use the one that cuts your cheesecake into 16 slices, that'll be the perfect size. I actually just bought a piece of cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory, but I had to cut it down to size so that it will fit. So you put the end of the cheesecake in the widest spot of the coffin. Oh no. And then it'll fit. Your cheesecake will fit perfect. So, once you have your cheesecake there, you will carefully pick up your coffin, line up the bottom, all right, now I'm going to add a little layer of cherry, just the sauce, and carefully spread it. Now I'm going to line up my chocolate bones, kind of, they don't have to be like right in a row, you know, just kind of like creepy. Because the cheesecake won't be long enough to fit the whole skeleton. So, because I like the actual cherry chunks, but I don't want them to like ruin my little skeleton guy, I'm just gonna put some there for the purpose of actually eating the dessert. And it looks kind of creepy as well. And then I'm going to drop some more sauce. That's how it looks inside. And then your plating is finished when you put on the coffin. And then whoever you serve this to will have a creepy surprise inside. And here is the Halloween coffin cheesecake, all finished and plated. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. If you did, you know what to do. Give me a like down below and also leave me a comment. Helps me out a lot. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, today's the day. If you'd like to see something else that's spooky and sweet, just click on one of these thumbnails. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.